Why the dynamics of feminism fail. Feminism has been around since at least the 1950s, but it could stretch back much further, and we won't go into that in this video. But what we want to talk about is the increasing dissatisfaction that women are finding with work life, especially trying to find a work-life balance between family and work and career. Working 8 hours, being dedicated to work, and being dedicated to a family isn't possible. Traditionally, men have focused on work and women have focused on the family. With feminism, this dynamic was rejected to be replaced by a supposedly equitable system in which men and women shared both spheres so that you could focus on family supposedly and focus on work. But this hasn't worked well for women, and it's obvious to anyone why this would be so. No matter what your ideology is, men can't get pregnant, and women are committed to raising a child for at least 9 months, and usually longer. And if they don't spend time with raising the child, with caring and raising the child, they miss out a lot, and this isn't able to be recouped some future date. It's not just the health of the mother needed to bear children, it's that time span between after the child is born and the child is matured enough to go out on their own. Being a man and focused on work, which is very easy for men, comes very natural to us. We can focus on our career and do what's necessary to get ahead. And even if we're not getting ahead, we're willing to do what needs to be done to make an income to support wife and family and ourselves. And this is hard, but we are able to focus solely on work, and this has not been acceptable to a lot of women who thinks men should spend more focus on the family. But for a man, this isn't really an option, because whatever some segments of society feel, if a family is poor, it's the man's fault. If the family goes into bankruptcy, it's the man's fault. If the family can't pay its bills or fulfill its obligations to its own members and to society, it's the man's fault. Nobody looks at a struggling family and blames the woman, especially if she's a wife and mother. So women entering the workforce are competing with specialists, and they cannot be specialists in the sense that men are. A man who goes into banking often is 100% committed to being a good banker, to fulfilling his role as a banker. The woman, she's on call night and day by all of the family. Even the husband calls her when things go wrong in the family. A child automatically reaches out to the mother when in emotional need. So the woman who has no husband or children can try and focus on career, but there's a clock ticking, and there are still obligations on her that aren't on a man, and she tends to be more guided by her emotion. She's empathetic. She feels for people who are wronged, people who are in need, people who are struggling. This does not always fit into the work environment. But the big problem really arises when the woman has children and is married. It's inevitable that her attention will be taken up by the family, and if not, then it's not going to be a successful marriage, and the children are not going to be cared for properly. This is just a fact of life. The man can physically replace the woman as a body, but he is not in a position mentally and physically and emotionally to replace the woman as the mother of a child. But on the other hand, the mother will never replace the father as a breadwinner to the degree that the man can do the job. It's simply a matter of focus and biological suitability. The father can't bear the children, the mother can't impregnate the father, and that closeness that a mother has with a child is never replicated by the father. So the mother who is spending 8, 9 hours, 12 hours, 16 hours at a job cannot possibly be a mother to the extent that a stay-at-home mother is. And we can talk about quality time, but in the end it is time. 8 hours spent with your child is never equaled by 2 hours by a woman who is tired and exhausted from the demands of work. This is not to say that women will not keep trying to do this, but the dynamic is not in your favor. The dynamic is that the man can focus 100% on his work. The woman rarely, if ever, can. And if she's a mother, especially a mother of small children, it's impossible to do this and be what society would call a good mother, which is a mother who is 100% committed to her child. It's a contradiction of terms. A person committed to work 100% cannot be a person committed to the child 100%. So it's just a matter of logic. You can try and split it 50-50, but work is not a 50% proposition, and neither is a child. So the dynamic just does not work out for feminists. Just doesn't. It just does not compute. The employer is not happy with a 50% effort, because 50% of the effort is to the family, and you cannot commit 100% to the job and still have 100% left over to commit to the child. That's the simple fact of the dynamic that women face.